So thank you all very much for coming. As I mentioned, today what we wanted to do is talk about a bit of the history of Variety the Children's Charity. And over the last 70 years, Variety the Children's Charity and Variety Village have been very intertwined. And as I'm going to tell a story about our evolution, because we're not starting a new charity. What we're doing is we're evolving our mission to meet the needs that we see today. And so in the story I'm going to tell, some of you know the story even better than I do. But I'm going to tell the story about where we've come and where we're going. And this charity, Variety the Children's Charity, is part of an international charity called Variety International. And Variety International started in 1928, actually. It's a 90-year-old charity. One of the oldest charities around. I got another thumbs up from Tim. And Variety the Children's Charity is actually started in Pittsburgh in 1928, and it started because a woman came into one of the theaters and dropped her child off in the theater with a note pinned to her. She was 8 months old, and the note said, "Can you please look after my child and feed my child and take care of my child? I have 8 others at home that I can't look after. Please give my child a future." And she was dropped off in the theater district one of the theaters because at the time it was the theater's owners and the entertainers and the entertainment sector that actually had the money. And so the mother felt that this was the best opportunity for her child to be taken care of. And the founding fathers of the day in the entertainment sector, they rose to the challenge, and they took the child and they said, you know what, we're going to make it our life mission to make sure that there's a charity to help children that are disadvantaged. And disadvantaged was a broad term, economically disadvantaged, physically disadvantaged. It was a broad term. But out of that formed a network across the United States where entertainers and entertainment owners and those forefathers, they took this mission very seriously. And it spread across the United States, and it spread to Canada. So we were the first Variety of the Children's Charity outside of the US to open in Ontario. And we wanted to do things differently. Most of the other charities evolved like foundations. They raised money, they dispensed money to families or children in need. But in Ontario, we did something different. We did something actually quite revolutionary. We said, we're not just going to hand money out, we're actually going to make life changes for these individuals. And we thought, what's the best way to do that? And in Ontario, we decided to build a school. So Variety of the Children's Charity built Variety Village in 1948. And it actually was a residential school, primarily for boys with disabilities at the time, because that was where the mindset was. And the reason they did it was because the educational system couldn't accommodate boys with disabilities, so they were being left aside. They weren't able to actually realize the best version of themselves. They weren't able to become the leaders that they could become. So we said in Ontario, no, we are going to make those leaders. We're going to have it happen here. And not only did we educate leaders here for 30 years, we created educational curriculum. We created leaders in education that taught these boys how to become the best versions of themselves and how to become leaders in their communities, and they went on to do that. And actually an interesting fun fact is Prince Philip came here to Variety Village to break ground because what we were doing was so unique. And so we were then setting history, charting the future for these boys. And then eventually the schools opened up and girls came here as well to be educated here. And we became a victim of our own success. And in the 1970s, we actually broke down barriers in education so that schools said there's no reason we can't accommodate kids with disabilities and have them be educated in the mainstream school system, because they saw what we did here and they thought, no, we can do it throughout the province. So, being the victims of our own success and now turning our minds to now what other impact can we make? How many more lives can we change? What is our new mission now that we no longer need to be a school for the province of Ontario? And we said what we're going to do is now that we've broke down education, we broke down barriers in education, now we're going to break down barriers in sport. Because all of us know the power of sport is inspirational and meaningful for kids. Being part of a team, learning competition, learning confidence, making friends, creating new opportunities and goals for themselves, having them achieve those goals, and then doing other things and continuing on. And so what we did is we moved from a school to an elite center of parasport. And because we had the dormitories and because we had the facility, we added a pool, we added the field house, and we became a resource for the province for elite parasport athletes. And another fun fact is since the 1970s, since we decided to take on this mission, there has not been a Summer Paralympics where there hasn't been a variety athlete or coach who hasn't represented Canada in the international stage. That is our legacy. Not a lot of people know that. Our Wall of Fame is a testament to that, but it's something that we should hold proud. And as a provincial, we are a provincial resource. We were for athletes. We created leaders. They went out to become leaders in their own field. Vicki Keith became a coach. Adam Lancia is a national athlete. Steve Bailao is a world coach. On the world stage, he's here now with our coaches. We created incredible legacies. Gorbachev wanted to know what was the magic that we had here. He came here to find out how we built these para-athletes. Because the Russians can be a bit competitive about those kinds of things. Right? So they looked across the globe. Where is the magic? And it was here. But then, again, we became victims of our own success. Because now, parasport is not what it was in the 1970s. Parasport is rather mainstream. The province brought the Pan Am Games here, built the Pan Am Center. Parasport mandated that every facility needed to be accessible. So again, broke down barriers in education, broke down barriers in sport. The next question is, what now is our call to action? Given that we have been creating and building legacies in this province for the last 70 years, what is our opportunity now? What's our mission now? Is it to be a facility in Southwest Scarborough? Or is it to be something more? So over the past couple of years, we worked with the management team, we worked with the board, we worked with Fanta, and we said, what is the greatest need in this province? And it is inclusion and its accessibility. Because we also know that just because you legislate that a building needs to be accessible doesn't mean there's a culture of inclusion. Doesn't mean it's accessible. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to find programming there. So what we decided to do is, we know no longer was Variety the place where, Variety Village, it was no longer the place where people from Ontario would come. But the programs that we have here, the province needs to have. So we said, fine, if the people from Ontario aren't going to come to Variety Village, we're going to take the programs from Variety and we're going to bring them across the province. Because every child in every community deserves the right to have a program that's accessible for their needs. Not only for that child, but for the entire community. For their family, for their caregivers, for the school system, for the recreational centers, for the neighbors, for the kids. Everybody benefits when you have inclusive programming. We see it here every day and we take it for granted. But if you're in London or you're in Vaughan, you don't have what we have. And so why is that important? It's because these kids become our ambassadors for change. Because they have heard no so many times. And once they hear yes, yeah, you can participate in that program. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you can have that friend. Yeah, you can go there. The power of yes changes lives. For those kids, for their parents, as they say, for those caregivers. And once they hear yes, they ask for yes more often. And suddenly, it's not just our programs that are accessible, but it feeds out into other areas of their community. And these kids become our ambassadors to create inclusive communities across the entire province. And then guess who benefits from that? We all do. So we're not just investing in children's programming. We're investing in inclusive communities across the province. And we do that through these programs, through these opportunities. So now that is our current call to action. So why did we go through this brand exercise? Because our village is a place of magic. And we know that. And now we have the opportunity to take our magic into communities across Ontario. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do it because we have a story to tell. We have leaders that we've built. We have staff that are incredible. We have programs that don't exist anywhere else. And we have an obligation now to give to the rest of the province what we have here. But we can't do it, again, we can't do it without a story, without a brand, without consistent messaging, and without an understanding that nothing at Variety Village is going to be compromised as we launch on this new mission. In fact, it will only be strengthened. Because everything we do at Variety Village, we're still going to do. Variety Village just happens to be our headquarters for where most of our programming happens. But already in the last 6 months, we now have programming in London. We have programming in Vaughan. We're going to have programming in Peel. We have programming at MLSC, the Launchpad. So we've already started to realize our mission. And in the last 6 months, as we've been rolling out our programs, nothing's changed here. We still have the Active Aging Group. We still have our fitness club. We still have our links and milestones. We still have our camps. And we are going to continue to have all of those things and more. But what you're going to see is you're going to see more and more of our charitable mission appear at the village. because it's our charitable mission that will drive us forward for the next 30 years and give us our reason to be. Because if we don't have a bigger reason to be, we're probably not going to survive as a community facility in Southwest Scarborough. So they go together. And so that's why we wanted to have the AGM and talk about where we're going, where we're headed, and why it's important that staff understand. And that if there are questions about this new direction, that we get them answered. Because if we're not telling our same story consistently, we're never going to be able to tell the community what our story is outside of here. And so that's why, our brand is important, and I'm going to invite Mark Drager to come up, and he's done a lot of work on our brand and why these images are what they are and why our brand and our messaging is so important. And again, we want all of you to buy into this new direction, because we don't achieve it unless we're all on board. Okay? So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. Oh, thank you.